is the meme of Gray always getting shafted on power-ups finally at a full dead pace. So this chapter we were given a really strong follow-up over a lot of what Gray's been doing over the course of 100 Years Quest, which it makes me extremely excited because the weird thing about him is when it came to his character gaining abilities, every single time it was like he would kind of scratch into some new area of ice and ice manipulation and anything to do with his power, but it never kind of seemed like it was going to have some, oh yeah, for sure, now this time we're going to be seeing where all of these powers combine and where they all meet up at. So with that, it's like, well, Gray in this chapter, he, the interesting thing, like, I really want to point out is that Viernes didn't have seemingly any interest in Natsu. Like, he talked to him a bit, but it wasn't like, it was in more just direct annoyance. Whereas, like, in this chapter, he mentions that he's enjoying, this encounter. He's enjoying fighting Gray, and he just wants to keep going. He completely locks up Celine, Wendy, and Carla so they can't interfere, which again makes you just go, okay, well, what exactly is, where exactly is that going to lead to? Because with Gray is kind of in a spot where it's funny that his original like pathway for his character when Mishima was still writing relatively early is he was going to become an Ice Dragon Slayer, ended up becoming a Devil Slayer instead, made more sense to his story arc. But now he's over here going everything on, doing stuff with dragons and everything on in 100 Years Quest. So it's like the weirdness of a Devil Slayer against a dragon is like, well, their powers, like, it's just not gonna mesh that way. But with obviously the buff from Wendy, he's able to just have the dragon attribute included to where at least he can get past that dragon immunity to non-dragon magic. And in the chapter, like, and it's not like it's just Viernes is just relying on the whole ability of it, because he's in his human form, so he doesn't have that full level of resistance, but he's using alchemy to just kind of nope attacks and to move around everything. Well, not move around everything, kind of like null everything around him so it doesn't really bother him or get in his way. Which again, I think it just adds to Viernes and it makes him a lot cooler. Again, like the fact that with Gray, he's just like, no, I actually want to fight this one. It made, again, is he going to really give us some information as the story goes involving himself through Gray? Because I believe that he's going to want to like interact more with him, and we're going to be finding out more of his character because of that. We're going to be finding out more exactly of what he's going to be like expanding into the verse, because it made sense. It makes a lot of sense really in the Lordscape of everything when you have the Gold Owl arc and he didn't talk a lot or have a lot of more in character stuff, when obviously from the standpoint of at the time of it was rough, because if you're a by chapter reader, it's like, man, that guy built up and then he's out, and then you wouldn't even get him back for weeks and weeks and weeks up until the revival of them, and now he's finally getting the ability to be active, and it's like, damn, I don't remember the exact date of when he lost this, but it was like a year ago or so. So it just adds a lot into what's going on with now we're getting Viernes' character expanded, and interestingly enough, it's with Gray. And again, we see the chapter, we've had a lot of really cool dialogue bits of just power explanations, just little tidbits and mentionings of abilities as in 100 Years Quest. Like, he hits Gray with some wiki knowledge. He's able to actually figure stuff out, because also I really like that he just made this cool anti-magic blocking ball like sphere around everybody, so he's just like, yeah, no, you guys are locked in here, can't use magic inside there, I'm busy. But he wants to keep fighting Gray. He talks about how he used alchemy to turn the air into magic, which makes you wonder, it's like he did that intentionally to maybe to help Gray a little bit, just because it would make magic in the area more potent, make it easier for him to intake magic and see exactly what he was going to be doing like this, because he dodges some of Gray's attacks, but he does like just take a straight like slash to the chest, and it doesn't do any damage, but he's commenting on how it's ice magic and dark magic, and he's like, oh, this is interesting, this didn't exist 400 years ago, but now I know it's nature and how it works, so it's not really going to be a problem for me. And at that point he goes and he's just like, okay, yeah, done, and starts using alchemy around it, using his ability to kind of just cancel and null different effects and spells. It's again really cool because with alchemy, it makes a lot of sense of like with direct elemental people, you're able to do a lot of just counterplay. But as a dragon, on top of that, he has this super high end variant. He doesn't really have to worry about the stamina cost. And on top of that, you just run into a raw power eclipsing of relatively anybody that you run into. So Gray in this, he's getting moves in, and it's not like, the thing is that it's not like when we saw at the start when he just used an ice attack on Dragon Viernes, and it's like the ice hits him and it just kind of shatters. It doesn't work. He's able to seemingly land the moves. They just aren't getting to a point where they're making any effect, but they are actually like that. They're not just touching him and then just shattering or like spell effect breaking before they go off. Like the abilities seem to go off. It's just that the level that he's putting out there is not enough. But Gray does this really cool thing in the chapter, and this is one of the things I talked about, is that Gray is able to pretty much just do ice things on the fly, because we know that ice make in of itself baseline is he is using ice to give shape to something. So at its core, you are like, as I talked about it, it's this kind of like set into creation and imagination and creativity. I don't know how I combine those two words, but this a level of your thought and the concept of what you're specifically trying to make would scale with the mastery of this ability. So Gray, who's thinking of fire magic, which we know that he experienced it for a short period of time when he was turned into Natsu, that he is creating these ice flames. So it's interesting to think, because it's like, I can't tell 100%, like, because it mentions that he wants to burn it. So it's like, are they producing heat, or is it like a flame that produces cold? Because he was talking about how like Viernes, we know that Lucy talked about the weakness to gold is fire and electricity, so it made sense that for Natsu to be the one to kind of go into that fight. So it's like, is Gray creating a ice flame that produces heat? I feel like it'd be the opposite, to where instead it burns off stuff, maybe in the same idea that it would burn objects the same way that fire burns something, but it's producing cold at a higher rate, which is, it's really interesting, because it didn't come off as just, oh yeah, this is Gray's brand new power up. It's just Gray, from what I can tell and looking at it, it's Gray getting this really cool flex moment in the chapter, but opening to showing that he can just again create things out of ice, create ideas and abilities out of ice, just from his memory, his idea of how they work, the concept of how these elements work. And I also think that's a really good callback with Rufus, because Gray fought somebody who was weaponizing his memories of other people's abilities. So it will make a lot of sense if Gray starts to do stuff like that. And he already has it to a degree, making ice weapons. And it's not like Urza's the only person with weapons, but I would imagine that Gray, like, it's got to be really easy if you're trying to think of something to do with like ice weaponry, just generally any form of swordsmanship or like blade abilities. It's like you can easily emulate Urza and come up with a lot of stuff, because she is a swords master, and that would just give you a faster kind of track to get the figure out what you're trying to deduce here as the best sword like skill you're implementing. It's kind of like when Wendy goes and emulates ideas from Natsu with dragon slaying attacks. It just makes sense. It just goes into what you would kind of want to play into whatever this person specializes in, because it's a little different than, say, like if Natsu wanted to be like, okay, well, I got to try and fight this guy. Like if he was fighting a guy that his style, maybe Lekka, it'll be like, oh, the normal style that I fight is less effective. This guy's so direct. Maybe I should, and it would go to like his encounters with Viernes and anytime he fights with Natsu, where it's like, I need to be more direct and maybe fight kind of like a Dragon Slayer, but maybe not so much, because he's not a Dragon Slayer, fights more directly as Devil Slaying, which would be a good callback to way back when he used it against the Thunder Legion and stuff like that, where with Gray it would just kind of keep coming full circle. But he ends up producing these cool ice flames, and which again is really sick. I assume that it would be the same thing, because it forms up when he first does it. ends up just kind of making ice flames around him in his first panel, and then this panel, it looks way more refined. It looks way more refined, like flames. And then after he goes from this point, it looks like it compresses. He hits Viernes with it, and then at that point, it actually looks like it's a blue fire. So I think that'll be really cool if we can see stuff like that, because then Gray could do something to where he could do an ice lightning, to where he could just form essentially a lightning bolt of sheer cold and throw it at somebody, emulating someone like Laxus. Maybe he'll go in from Wendy and he'll just do something more with the cold. Maybe that's what he did at this chapter with what he thought about something with, oh, what did Viernes say? And oh, someone like Wendy, because he's been around Wendy so much, being on the main team, that he's able to understand a little bit about oh, well, in the atmosphere there's so much moisture, again similar to when he was turned into Juvia. He's able to figure that out, to where you can combine these ideas and concepts, and he's able just to keep expanding his ice abilities. Because we know, I mean, you can look at just when he was in the illusion from Raj, when he was fighting, Hien, Gray saw an ability in an illusion, and he was able to immediately copy that and incorporate it into his normal moveset. So it's like, it's not even just, yeah, he can see an ability and copy it, because it's, Raj's illusion wasn't actually there. It's an illusion. So it's the idea that Gray sees and how he implements these ideas into his abilities that really end up resulting in these crazy changes in what he can do. So at this point too, like I said, it wasn't like he did this whole bit and it was really cool. And it's not, I'm not going to downplay it, but it wasn't anything that did that like directly affected Viernes in anything expansive, because like the whole attack goes off, Viernes is fine, he just goes for a counterattack, he's like, yeah, whatever. But then Gray goes and he freezes the air around them. He just completely freezes the oxygen, and it's similar to like when he froze wind and air back when he fought Tempesta, but I would assume just it's at a way more precise degree, because if the air is now completely frozen, he's saying that just the baseline of not being able to breathe, it's gonna obviously do have that effect, but also, oh yeah, the cold air going to your lungs is gonna do some damage. I assume with that though, Gray can probably just adapt to it, and then at that point he's probably able to breathe in cold, like frozen air, like it's normal air, and it's not going to be a problem for him. It's gonna, like, if you're it's not brought up much like with fighting Natsu, but if you have extreme high heats around you, it's going to be hard to breathe, it's going to be hard to see, because it's going to be hurting your eyes, it's going to be hurting your ears, your mouth. Like, it's just going to be hard for your senses to handle that level of cold. With heat with Natsu, cold with Gray. And Viernes, again, in the chapter, he's not hurt. He doesn't have any damage. His clothes aren't damaged. There's nothing that looks like he's been really knackered out. Everything, to me, when you see him, it's going to be more so in interest. Like, he's interested in what Gray's doing. Because the only way that Gray could really win this fight is by doing something to get that locker out. And then, similar to what happened to Celine, he just has his power drop. And so he's shortened in power for a period of time. But I still think that he's not really in like the level of manipulation that the locker is affecting him like it did Celine. He seems relatively fine. So I personally think he's going to be able to just, yeah, I already conquered that. It's not really a problem for me. I just know if I get this out of my body, I'm going to lose my power for right now. So maybe he wants to do that, but he'll take Gray so he can do it without having to worry. He'll be like, hey, I'll work out a deal for you. I'll teach you alchemy and examine your alchemy. But in exchange, after I do this, I need you just to guard me, because I can't get this out of my body without having a period of time where I'm weakened, and I can't turn back into an idea. Maybe that's why he can't turn back into an idea, is because this lacrima is preventing it. It's just something that interferes with the ability, since he's a dragon. It's like absorbed into his body, and it's affecting his dragon ability. So it would just be like at a core foundational level that just connects into all of his other abilities, that now he's just like, well, shit, I got to take care of this, and I need someone to help me do it. I think that he's going to be interested in Gray, because there's no problem with him turning into a dragon. He could just go into his dragon form and just kill Gray if he wanted to. But I personally, I think that with the whole setup to where he didn't just be like, oh, I'm gonna wipe this guy out, I'm gonna do X, Y, or Z. He clearly was, he's enjoying the fight. He didn't seem to really enjoy the fight at all when he was fighting Natsu. He didn't seem to have any form of real interest in Natsu as a character, because when you think about it, again, Viernes could just go into his dragon form, squash Gray, be done with it. With Natsu, he was actually really trying to get rid of this guy. He was really annoyed, and then once they powered Natsu up, it just became more of a problem for him. Gray doesn't have that threat level for him. I think that Gray, from his efforts of just seeing Gray think on the fly, do strange abilities, and like kind of like work with ice to a level that he'll probably think like, well, this guy is turning X, Y, or Z. Essentially, he's just doing alchemy, maybe subconsciously, into his ice abilities. And I think it'd be really cool if he looked at Gray and saw that, like, this untapped prodigy level of alchemy. He's like, well, if you're doing this subconsciously without even really studying the craft, imagine if you study like actually being an alchemist. Let's go. I think it'd be much cooler, because with the Dragon Gods, one thing that we've had that has always been a favorite just story aspect of mine is that they're all independent and all have their own things going on. And on top of that, this further separates like Viernes and Alderaan. I'm perfectly fine. Alderaan can be like the guy who is just, he hates humans, they ain't shit, everyone else for the most part is weaker than him, he doesn't care, and he's just like, get in line or get eaten, or both. He doesn't have any form of semblance of compassion towards humanity. He doesn't seem to really care too much about the dragons. Alderaan is for himself, and I'm perfectly fine if he stays that kind of super arrogant, egotistical asshole, and he's just that out of the group. But Viernes, if Viernes is somebody who is like, he kind of is acting fully independent, and we find out maybe why he was doing everything, maybe because you could easily say like he doesn't want to be involved as much. Maybe he just wants to maybe he used to have just a different life, he enjoyed it, but similar to how, I don't like, not directly, but you say kind of like how Igneal ended up liking humans through, well, he already had a degree of liking of humans, but then obviously with Natsu, it's just kind of his following. Same thing with, like, say, like Mercphobia, is you give with Gray, where Gray is that character that makes him go, you know what, you guys aren't so bad. Because I feel like it'd be really cool if we get to a point where it's like Dragon Gods versus Ignia, and Ignia and his squad are their own, because Selene and Merc are obviously not going to side with him. Alderaan, I don't know exactly what's going on with Alderaan, but I would imagine if anybody's gonna get like, stay on his side, it's gonna be him. And then maybe Dogremag is alive, and you can have Dogremag back up, and that way we could have 3 and 3. And Viernes could be like a teacher for Gray, because out of all of them, it's like Selene should be logically some form of teacher for Lucy, with just, space-time magic, being able to cross between dimensions and stuff. So you could really advance her getting taught from there. It's the same thing with like Wendy. Wendy could just like learn dragon things from her, of someone with such vast knowledge. But it's, I think it'd be really cool if, out of any of them, if you had Gray as being taught from one of them, but not in the ways of anything dragon related, with alchemy. Because say like with Viernes, it's like if Viernes as a dragon, like he just, at the end of the day, he just wants to be left alone and do alchemy shit. Because you could have something in his story to where he is not he's not as interested in the like dragon to dragon life. Maybe he actually is just like, no, I really like alchemy, I'm into alchemy, I like just doing weird experiments. Because it would be really interesting for him to just kind of put him in that independent path where he's just like, no, I want to take care of the other dragon gods and get rid of my problems, but this is what I want at the end of the day. Because you could work towards him being maybe not directly an ally, but somebody like not against the Fairy Tail Guild, if you have like a connection point with someone like, again, Gray, and then a mutual interest that ends up getting there. Plus, it'd be really cool to see Gray progress with his abilities and whatnot, with a teacher at that level of expansive of educational, like just what alchemy tricks and knowledge to give to him. But as it were, the chapter was really good. I was super stoked. The last one was fun. I mean, it was mostly just kind of set up and like give us a little bit of exposition and then a nice Dragon Ball reference. But I really wanted to get to this fight. I really wanted to see what was going on with Gray and what was going to go on with Viernes, because that was the fight that, to me, I believe is going to be the most directly character value. Like with Urza and Wed, I think that's going to be really important for Urza's character in the long run. Maybe Jalal will get involved or something, but I don't think it's going to be happening anytime like at the moment. I think it's going to be still Wed on top for a while because he obviously just got a lot stronger. And it doesn't seem to be like the skill difference of swordsmanship is Urza's problem. It's just a raw level of power and stat gap that Wed now has on her that I don't think she's going to be able to handle at the moment. Because I think everybody is going to have a step back and have a degree of training, power up, some form of new breakthrough for their abilities. Like if Urza is able to get some brand new super sword or armor, maybe meet some legendary blacksmith, because like it makes sense for Wendy to be expanding on all this enchanting knowledge that she got from Irene. Natsu and Lucy literally just got new hype stuff. Like Natsu just got a bunch of big hype. Now he's got to go eat Bestia's flames. Lucy just got the Mercphobia key, and with again, we don't have anything directly for Urza, but I feel like Urza's is very easy to go off of. You can just get her some form of blacksmith, because you can easily go off of character making new armor or weapons specifically for them, or Urza finding some form of legendary armor or weapon that was like lost to history, or maybe she has to go find. Because Gray now, like I said, he's in the one that is the most weird. If there's an idea of one of the enemies is just like, listen, I don't like the rest of you guys, but this guy's all right with me because, fuck everyone else, but anyone who's an alchemist, I like them. Because I think that'd be really cool too, if like for Viernes, if the reason that he wanted to do Gold Owl and have everything in the first place is because he wanted to like nurture alchemists and get alchemy going. Because there was a lot of fodder that we saw in the guild, because everybody that was like a decent fighter was, it's the Signaru sisters or somebody that Duke ended up modifying and creating. So with so many people in there, because it's a pretty big guild, so and it does a lot of trade, so he must just like enjoy again alchemy as it, like the concept and the practice, and that would make a lot of sense why he would let a lot of like young people who aren't that powerful in his guild. And it's not like he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have this like complex filter of people, but I think it would see my categories. I think it would make a lot of sense if he ended up having something like that, like some form of personal tie into, well, this is going to be my backstory thing, and his backstory thing is just like he's some nerd dragon who is everybody else is doing magic, and he's like, I don't really want to do magic, I want to do science. And they're like, there's no science in this verse, guy. And he's like, well, okay, well, I'm gonna invent it, call it alchemy. Maybe alchemy predates him, maybe he invented it, who knows. Actually, that would be another really cool thing. It's like if Viernes invented alchemy in the verse, so he just has this bias towards alchemists, and he's just like, yeah, anybody who does that magic shit, fuck them, but if we get over to alchemy, yeah, those are my guys. He's just completely biased for his own style, but we'll see. Either way, like I said, it was a really good chapter. I was just stoked that it, like, I saw the title and it was just going to be Grace focus, and I was like, yes, okay, cool. And it ended still, again, Wendy and them are locked, so it's not like they're going to be able just to jump in. Natsu and Urza are out doing their own thing. Lucy's doing her own thing. So I'm just stoked to see where this goes to next, and to see what Gray is going to have upgraded and on the table. Is he going to get like a partial new form in the next couple chapters? Is he going to unlock some new cool ability? I'll talk about it in a video soon, but like I really like the idea if Gray can turn himself into ice, and then the idea of molding himself to give himself whatever shape or whatever form he wanted, because at that point he can, it's just up to his imagination of what he decides to be. So anyway, other than that, comment below, tell me your thoughts are, and what you thought about this chapter. But other than that, I'll talk to you guys in the next one.